Good evening and welcome to the Line of Scrimmage, DFS cash game show, and some GPP and some ownership percentage. And of course, this is week 17, the crazy week 17, as you probably already know, and you'll find out more. And we got John Laub, the scholar, with us, a week 17 bonanza, and the old man of fantasy, Emil Kadlec. How's it going, John?
Going well. I had 15 regular season teams. I won only one championship after making the playoffs in 10. So at least I got one ring on my finger. So that was good. I won a third of my best ball league, so I'm ecstatic about that. I had a very good season in best ball. Came in second in a couple leagues. A couple leagues, obviously, when you play enough best ball, you're going to have bad seasons on some. But very happy with my best ball. DFS has been profitable, so good. I can't complain. I'm staying in the black. Hey, I'm not getting any vacation homes or anything. But the goal is to stay in the black. I've stayed in the black. I have a chance this year, if I can have a good final week, I can set a record. I've been tracking my scores in DFS lineups for the last 4 years. If I can have a good week on both lineups, I could set a record, my personal record. Just my own personal record. It's going to be tight. I had a really good 2018 DFS season, but I'm on the verge. I'm right there. So I need a big weekend. Cool. I'm excited about week 17. Remember when Rex Burkhead brought home a lot of bacon in 2000? I think it was 2018, week 17. Elijah McGuire of the Jets in week 16. You've got to know your rosters. You got to pay attention if you're building those lineups, and we're here to help you tonight.
All right, let's start off with the first view graph.
Absolutely. Where we always like to start off is our CFF. Our CFF. I'm thinking about college football. Been watching so much college football the past 48 hours, my friends. So is our DFS sleepers. If you want Derrick Henry, if you're going to want Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, you're going to have to find value at the quarterback position. One of the games that is fascinating between essentially two poor teams are the Broncos hosting the Raiders. Drew Lock is basically bare minimum, Emil. $5,000.
Whoa.
$5,000. If you want to get Henry, and then you want to go with Adams and Ridley, I'm just talking the extreme, you're going to have to find value at quarterback. Drew Lock is that guy in my book. He's home. They are an underdog, and Vegas has it at 51.5 points when I looked this afternoon. They expect 7 touchdowns to be scored in this game. So both teams should be able to put points on the field against poor defenses. The Raiders, in the last 4 games, are surrendering 21.43 points per game. They've given up 1,000 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, and 2 touchdowns rushing to opposing quarterbacks. Drew Lock is maddening. I understand that. He's up and down. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. But Emil, this is DFS. It is about the individual weekly matchup. When you look at Drew Lock against the Chargers, 20.8 points earlier in the season. Against the Falcons, 33.2. 3 weeks ago against the Panthers, 26.6. So I get it. The last 2 weeks, 16 and 12. But this is a matchup. The Broncos, for whatever reason, historically will play the Raiders tough, no matter what. If you remember Gary Kubiak's last game as the Broncos head coach, same exact scenario, at home against the Raiders. And Devontae Booker, I put him in my DFS lineup, and he had 2 touchdowns and like over 100 yards from scrimmage. Denver is home here. Denver will play well against the Raiders. And we know Las Vegas can score. So for $5,000, we only need 3 times our value, Emil. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at 15 points. 15, folks. That's not a lot from Drew Lock with a nice 22-point ceiling. So I like Drew Lock here. If you want to go big, 2 wide receivers and Derrick Henry, you're going to have to find value at quarterback. I recommend Drew Lock here. Love him for $5,000. Just before we went on, about, 1 o'clock this afternoon, I was out with my wife and my daughter. We were doing stuff. I got the news that Latavius Murray was out of the lineup. I was like, I got to get home. Who's going to run the football? Like, literally, who's going to run the football? I didn't know the depth chart at that time. Got home, looked it up. Ty Montgomery. I remember him as a wide receiver coming out of Stanford. And I wanted to look back because Ty Montgomery has very good. And what I did, my friends, I looked back in 2016. There were back-to-back games when he was a member of the Packers. He had 10 receptions for 98 and 66 yards in back-to-back games for the Packers. Then you go to 2017. He's still a member of the Packers. And he had games with 6 receptions, 75 yards and a touchdown, 8 receptions, 15 yards. Wow, is that true? That is true. Wow, 8 receptions. I almost can't believe it. 8 receptions for 15 yards. He also had 35 yards rushing. So there is opportunity here in the passing game. And what I like about it is Drew Brees is going to throw short passes. There's no Michael Thomas. There's no Alvin Kamara. Ty Montgomery in this game, I think he's going to be peppered with a lot of passes. Remember Jalen Samuels last year had a game also? He had like 9 or 11 receptions for like 60 yards as a member of the Steelers. So he ended up with like 18 fantasy points. I think Ty Montgomery is in the exact same spot, Emil. Now, you had mentioned it before the show, and tell our viewers, what were you concerned about in the backfield possibly for the Saints? And I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm worried that Taysom Hill, even though he's a quarterback and you can't start him in anything, you could start him at tight end in ESPN leagues a few weeks ago. But so he's a quarterback and he could run a lot. He can run a lot. He could run more and he could take away some of those carries. So that's something to think about when you're thinking about Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, I agree with you that that's more than possible. So it does limit Ty Montgomery's upside. Absolutely agree with you. And I thought about that. But he's only $4,000, Emil. That's need pretty cheap. 12 points, right?
Yeah, that's not that much.
That's not that much. If he got 7 receptions for 70 yards, we're golden. Now, I agree. I don't think he'll score on the ground. But he could get a receiving touchdown. Mm-hmm. But I think if they're in the 5-yard line, I have a feeling that it would be Taysom Hill. Also, remember, Drew Brees isn't as good as Tom Brady at the goal line, but Drew Brees does get a lot of those jump over the goal line at the 1-yard line. Mm-hmm. He gets those touchdowns. But I'm banking on Ty Montgomery here as a wide receiver. Then, and I looked at that they are playing the Panthers. And I think it's a good matchup against this. Even though the Panthers are better than last year, I think the matchup is healthy enough. It's good enough where I'm okay with starting them against the Panthers. Also, I just don't think Drew Brees has a lot of options in the passing game right now. Where is he going to go with the football? Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook. They have a bunch of guys, who are like practice squad, 4th and 5th receivers. I think Montgomery's get here. The one player that I've liked all week has been Ty Johnson. Emil, if it wasn't for Bill Belichick to Adam Gase and the resume, which is obviously not even comparable, the Patriots are as bad as the Jets over the last month.
Ouch.
The Patriots stink. Has anyone been watching Patriots? They are so bad on offense, folks. They are terrible on offense. My best friend and I were talking about this. The worst thing about watching the Patriots now, they can't get a chunk play. They cannot get 20 yards on a pass play. And their running backs can't run for 20 yards. It is awful in New England right now. Why I bring this up, New England is also beatable on the ground. New England is surrendering, Emil. It's almost shocking how bad they are on defense. 27 points a game in the last month to opposing running backs. They have surrendered 576 yards rushing, 23 receptions for 133 yards. The only thing they're okay at, they have a bend but don't break defense. They've only given up 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground. But the Jets, Frank Gore is gone. LaMichael Pirine is not going to play. He's on the COVID list. We only have Ty Johnson and Josh Adams. In 2 of the last 4 games, Ty Johnson has scored over 17 DraftKings points.
Woo.
Against Las Vegas, he had 22.7 DraftKings points. 2 weeks ago against the Rams in that upset, Ty Johnson had 17.5 DraftKings points. I like Ty Johnson here because even if he splits with Josh Allen, I saw Josh Allen a lot at Notre Dame. Josh Allen cannot catch the football. He is a straight line runner. Ty Johnson should be their pass catching back, and he should share carries in the backfield. The one thing the Jets can do is run the football. Now, Frank Gore hasn't been great, but they can run the football at times. Ty Johnson here, I think he'll get you at least 4 receptions for 30 yards. So you have 7-point minimum. What I like, he's only 4,300. I actually think at this point, it would be coaching malfeasance not to see if Ty Johnson can play in the NFL at this point. He's got to be the guy who gets the most touches in this backfield. And New England cannot play defense. Their front 7 is not the New England front 7 we are used to. I like Ty Johnson and Ty Montgomery. Choose one for your salary savings at running back. And Emil, most people are probably not watching the New York Giants lately. Trust me, I'm in the Northeast. It's a tough watch. But Daniel Jones returned last week. Sterling Shepard had 12 targets and a touchdown. He had 9 receptions for 77 yards. He was peppered with targets by Daniel Jones. And they are playing the Dallas Cowboys. All year, Emil, you and I have made lineups. We've profited off attacking the Dallas secondary. Now, while they are better, the Cowboys have been playing better down the stretch. They're still not great. Emil, to opposing wide receivers, they are giving up 40 points a game in the last month. 54 receptions, 712 yards, and 6 touchdowns. When Sterling Shepard is healthy, he's a very good NFL receiver. He's not an alpha male. He's not going to go out there and get you 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, Julio Jones. But Sterling Shepard is very good day in and game out. Some of these logs from weeks 7 to 12, 17.9, 15.4, 12, 10.7, 13.8. Then he exploded for 22.7 last week. Why I like him even more, Emil. We talked about this last week. The Cowboys' offense is playing much better in the last month. Well, why is that important? Andy Dalton is pushing the ball down the field, and the Cowboys are putting points on the board. They'll be able to score against the Giants, which will force the Giants offensively to push the ball and throw the ball. I don't think this is a 13-10 slugfest. Andy Dalton's playing good football. If you haven't watched him, last week we recommended, Amari Cooper, and he was very good for the salary. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup smashed. Cowboys are playing better under Andy Dalton. It took some time for him to get used to the organization, get his feet wet. Then he had COVID. But once in the last month, he's been playing good. Well, that'll force the Giants to play well. I love Sterling Shepard. He's only 5,200 here. If you want to go with two big receivers, if you want to go with like Calvin Ridley and Devontae Adams, you better find salary cap savings. And Sterling Shepard, I like him in this smash spot against Dallas. What do you think, Emil?
Yeah, those are great. Also, just to think about it, Sterling Shepard is 3.9%. I know we're percent owned. I know we're talking cash, but it's always a nice thing to think about. And remember, the Cowboys and the Giants are still in the playoff hunt. And whoever wins that, if Washington loses, so this is a big game. And consistent with what they're saying is it may end up being a high-scoring game. Again, just a couple quickies before we move on. Drew Lock is also 2.7% owned, so he's another cash guy that has a low ownership. And Ty Johnson is 5.8% owned.
Wow, that's a nice.
And
those
Ty
are nice.
Montgomery is 24.7% owned.
Whoa!
25.
So people caught on to Montgomery quick.
Yes, pretty quickly, because that data, it sometimes takes a little bit to kind of flip over. So yeah, those are great. All right, let's flip on to the next view graph here.
Emil, I've done really well with Kirk Cousins this year. I'm
Fantastic.
not going away from man, he is so, I'm not trying to be silly, but from a fantasy standpoint, that I had to invest in Kirk Cousins. He's been outstanding. I mentioned my best ball teams. You want to know why I won? It was almost directly related to Kirk Cousins.
Wow.
On the teams that I won with, Kirk Cousins was my quarterback. I had Kirk Cousins with like Matthew Stafford and Cam Newton. Kirk Cousins. Who was the other one? I had him with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And, oh my God, who else did I have?
So he was really your second quarterback you were taking.
Yeah. I remember you were big on Ryan Tannehill, and I wish I had taken more of Ryan Tannehill in best ball, but I was very comfortable targeting Kirk Cousins.
Sounds like it worked for you.
It was fine, right? Mm-hmm. And in Dynasty Leagues, I've acquired him last summer for like nothing. So I'm in. I'm all in. There is no reason to not be in this final game against the Detroit Lions. Emil, since week 12. I don't want to go too far back sometimes. Week 12. Here's Kirk Cousins. 30 points, 26 points, 18, 20, and 23.
Pretty darn good.
He's been so darn consistent. And the thing is, his price doesn't really move. It's locked in 6,200, 6,100, 64, 62, 59. Now it's up to 63. And how can the Vikings not get Justin Jefferson this record? Amen. He comes into this game, 79 receptions, 1,267 yards, and 7 touchdowns, averaging 18 points a game. And you and I have been playing and watching football for well over 80 years combined. He's in that pantheon. Randy Moss, 1998, 1,313 yards, Vikings record. But more importantly, Anquan Bolden, 2003, 1,377 yards. You're looking at Jefferson 110 yards away from Anquan Bolden's NFL record. And he is less than 50 yards away from Randy Moss's Vikings record. I just do not see how the Vikings, watching the film, looking at the matchups, the Detroit Lions, this is how bad it is. I'm trying not to be rude. I know these guys are trying. The Vikings in the last month have surrendered 54.5 points a game to opposing wide receivers. 65 receptions for 829 yards and 8 touchdowns. How is Detroit going to slow down Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson? I mean, it would just – I just don't see it happening. And aren't you – if you're Kirk Cousins and you want to lead this team, don't you want to get Jefferson these records? Like, these things matter to players. They matter. I mean, it would matter to me. I mean, I care when my students score well on the AP exam. It is the greatest feeling. If you're Kirk Cousins and this coaching staff, don't you want to get Justin Jefferson these records?
Absolutely.
I mean, they're in the – absolutely, right? You've got to pepper him with targets. So I love this in my Fantastic Four. And hey, look it is narrative driven by statistical analysis. The line I sat through that game last week of Tampa Bay to Detroit because I had Mike Evans in a playoff game, and I just saw Tom Brady and Mike Evans absolutely torture the Lions. How could and Emil, they don't have Dalvin Cook. I mean, Kirk Cousins might throw 50 times in this game. Why not? I mean, we don't even know if Alexander Madison's going to play. You're going to tell me you're going to grind the clock with Boone at running back? Or are you going to try to get your all-world rookie some record? I just, against the defense that can't stop anyone. So I love it here. Then, if we're going to go high-end with Jefferson, because he's pretty pricey here. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's pretty pricey. I had to find you salary relief, everyone. While I was thinking about the Broncos and I was thinking about Drew Lock, it just dawned on me. It's Jerry Jeudy. He had 15 targets last week, Emil. 15. Finally, how come they are not targeting him more is still mind-blowing to me. That's a whole different question for another day. Now, he only caught 6 because it's Drew Lock.
Maybe that's why they're not targeting him that much.
They can't, but
less than 50% catch rate.
Yeah, is it catch rate or is it quarterback failure?
Sure.
It's always kind of,
I agree. I shouldn't have been that specific.
And I know Judy's dropped some passes and Bronco fans have been upset. But people, Brandon Marshall is the all-time leader in drop passes. Ask me if I care. I would take Brandon Marshall any day on any team in his prime. Brandon Marshall was unbelievable, folks. I'm not worried about that. I like the 15 targets here. So I'm going to bank on 15 targets for $4,200 in a game that has a 51.5 over-under, and Denver has a game script that says they should be playing from behind in the fourth quarter. And I like the fact, did you see or hear this, Emil? They took Jeudy out of the game because I think he dropped the pass, and he went ballistic on the sideline.
Wow, no, I didn't hear about that.
And they put him back in. And I like that. Mm-hmm. That's good. He wants it.
He's frustrated. He's frustrated at a lot of things. But, it's a rookie season, but, they're starting to, they're trying to develop him. So hopefully the last week was a good start of that.
Yes, Judy sees Jefferson in Minnesota. He sees T. Higgins in Cincinnati. Sees CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. And he's saying, why am I not doing these things?
He probably does.
So,
you're probably right.
Look, if they're human beings, wouldn't you? They're competitive. He knows he's good. So, yes, I'm going to bank on that. And the Raiders, we went over some of the numbers. The Raiders are not good on the back end. I'll take a home underdog, Jerry Jeudy, with, I expect, at least 9 targets, right, in this game. I'll take him there. And then we know the big running backs. Derrick Henry's the big guy. Dalvin Cook's off the board. David Montgomery. I don't really love the matchup. Don't like Chubb against Pittsburgh. And I came to the conclusion it's Jonathan Taylor. The guy you've got to put in there in my Fantastic Four, in your Fantastic Four. Jonathan Taylor against the Jaguars. The Jaguars are surrendering 33 points a game to opposing running backs. In the last month, they've given up 582 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. They've given up 19 receptions for 193 yards. Jonathan Taylor in the last 4 games, 22.5, 35.5, 19.5, 19.5. Emil, he's the guy. If you want to go Henry, it's $2,000 more. I get it. But, you can't really go Jefferson and Cousins and Henry. You can, but you have to jam them in and take a lot of risk. So I love Jonathan Taylor with the $2,000 savings. Put in the Fantastic Four this week is Cousins, Taylor, Jefferson, and Jeudy. What are some of the ownerships there, Emil, by the way?
Well, just starting with Taylor, he's the third most owned running back at 17%. And Cousins is 6.6% owned, which is a little higher than you think because the quarterbacks are pretty flat. There's not a really high-owned quarterback. Justin Jefferson's the second most owned receiver at 21.5%. And Jerry Jeudy's at 5.1%. I mean, you got to expect Jefferson to be high-owned.
Yes, people have to be. How can you not appreciate the season he's having, right?
Exactly.
And you see this matchup. It's just such a good matchup. You have to be. And the salary isn't crazy. What is it, 7,400?
Yep.
That's not like, 7,600.
7,600.
That's not like, that's not, oh my God, I can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not 8,500.
I like this Fantastic Four, and I like, including a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who, that's a great salary, and he's trying hard. He's frustrated. They're giving him chances. Like you said, good matchup against the Raiders. So,
yes.
Yeah, I like that input. That's fantastic. Oh, I use the word fantastic. All right, let's get off to the next view graph here.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you love our show and you're looking forward to some great DFS fun tomorrow, because the regular season is over for most. There are people in week 17s. I'm not in one, and the best ball season is over. So I don't have any best ball teams to root for anymore. Hey, get into DFS this week. It's a fun week, and we have so many good articles for you up on footballdiehards.com. They're there every week, all year. We've talked about them. DFS 3 and Out by the Hall of Famer Bob Harris. The Shadow Knows by Gary Davenport, and he looks at cornerback, wide receiver matchups, where to find advantages, and which players to roster in your lineups. DFS Digging into Crates Daily with Justin Lanero. I gave you some sleepers, but Justin gives you at least 2 more sleepers at every position for you. My DFS Sheet of Knowledge is up there now with top shelf investments, and I give you 2 cash game lineups, and I always update those lineups on Sunday mornings by 9 o'clock, so check those out. And then Kyle Dvorak gives you his DFS cash game and tournament breakdown article. All those are up on footballdiehards.com now.
Great stuff. What an interesting week 17 we'll have. So and definitely look on the site, footballdiehards.com in the morning, because there'll probably be a couple more COVID characters that are inactive or put somewhere. So we've had a lot. So hopefully it won't be too many, because there's not too many players left.
You know what, Emil? I'm starting to get worried about the playoffs. Look at this Browns. They don't seem to be getting things in
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for the playoffs. You better keep these players healthy and isolated.
Well, look at New Orleans. You're losing Kamara, and you're probably going to lose him for the wild card game. I forget whether New Orleans has a shot at a bye. They probably don't at this point. So yeah, it's going to put itself into the playoffs too.
Yeah, so it's going to be challenging, that's for sure.
All right, final view graph.
Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of hinted at it. We've been talking about this game. Everyone's going to stack Houston and Titans. The Texans and the Titans. I get it. And go out there and put together a stack. Corey Davis, right? Brandon Cooks. You can put Tannehill or Watson. I would probably even put Henry and Watson. I mean, look, we all know Jonnu Smith's cheap, so I'm not going to give you that one. I said, where can I find that people are not talking a lot about? And I obviously like to go to games that are over 50 points scored that Vegas is projecting. And obviously Vikings-Lions, we've been talking about it here, Kirk Cousins, Jefferson, DeAndre Swift, who I happen to like. As of this afternoon, the third highest projection on the board is the Raiders and the Broncos, Emil.
Whoa.
Titans Tech are 56, which everyone's going to stack. Vikings at Lions are 54. Raiders at Broncos are 51. They're ahead of the Packers and the Bears and the Falcons and the Buccaneers. So I said, you know what? I want to bet against bad defenses. Now, there's risk involved because both Denver and Las Vegas, they don't have superstars like Henry and Watson on the offensive side. That's why we're getting value with the salary on these players. But they do have good players. My first decision, what I started with, was Darren Waller, the tight end. Emil, what's the Waller ownership projected to be at?
Waller is 11.2%, which is the second highest owned tight end.
That's why I said I'm not going to go Waller. It's just he's too obvious. So I said, let me pivot from Waller to Fant. So what is the ownership on Fant?
4.66%.
I'll take it. I mean, now, is Waller a better player than Fant? Absolutely. It's not even close. But this is GPP. We are looking for differentiation amongst our players. Also, what's Waller cost? Let me look here. Waller's 7,100.
Yeah.
Wow. So Fant is he's 2,700 less. That's huge. And in the last two games, Emil, Fant has 12.5 and 20.8 points. Oh my God! I just looked at this. I didn't even realize this. 20 targets in the last 2 weeks. Whoa! Yeah, and I saw the 14 receptions. So he's been targeted 20 times. Wow. So basically in the last 2 weeks, they've been funneling the passing game through Judy and Fant. So we talked about Judy earlier. I shouldn't have to sell anyone. And what was the ownership? You said it was pretty decent on Judy, right, Emil?
It's a 5.1.
I'll take that. I can get 2 Bronco receivers right around less than 5% or lower. I'll take it. Now, the decision was, do I go Josh Jacobs and Drew Lock or Derek Carr and Melvin Gordon? I had to think a lot about these and go back and forth. I decided that I think Carr is less risky, but he has more upside. If you look at the last 4 games, and I had to take out my own bias because Derek Carr cost me a playoff game. Remember that Chargers game on that Thursday night? So I put aside my bias. If you look at the last 4 games, Derek Carr, 35.7, 28.8, the 2-point clunker against the Chargers when he got hurt.
Yeah.
And 26.2. Derek Carr has scored over 26 points in 3 of the last 4 games.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, if you were like me and you played Derek Carr in that game in the playoffs against the Chargers, you're angry. But this is DFS. I got to put that aside, right, my friend?
That's right.
Derek Carr is in a great matchup here. This is a good matchup. The Broncos are depleted in the secondary. The Broncos are giving up 38. Whoops, that's against wide receivers. Let me get to the quarterback screen. The Broncos are the 4th kindest defense against quarterbacks in the last month. They are giving up 23.5 points per game, 1,213 yards, only 4 touchdowns, but 3 rushing touchdowns. And Derek Carr can run. He can run touchdowns in. So I like Derek Carr for the ceiling. And when we're in GPP, we're looking for ceiling. So I like Derek Carr for ceiling. And then Melvin Gordon. He's getting the touches, Emil. Now, last week, he had a nice game. Now, I wish I got the memo that they weren't going to throw him any targets. He had 0 targets. I still don't understand. The previous 2 games, Gordon had 7 targets and 7 receptions. Last week, they didn't throw 1 pass to him. So I didn't get that memo, and he didn't get it to the end zone. But in the last 3 games, here's his average yards per carry, Emil. In the last 4, 8.7, 5.2, 5.5, and 4.9.
Jeez.
He's running the football well. Now, his DraftKings is dependent on receptions and touchdowns. Because last week, 16 carries, 79 yards, 0 receptions, 0 touchdowns.
Yeah. But
the week before, 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Week before that, 3 receptions, no touchdowns. So if he gets in the end zone, he gets 3. I'm not looking for a ton of receptions. Please just put it in the playbook. Melvin Gordon, 3 receptions, please. That's it. I'm not looking for the Austin Eckler, 11. I would be happy with 3 receptions for 33 yards. And get him in the end zone.
Philip Lindsay is out, so
yes,
you got to remember that.
That's why it's even crazier that he didn't have
get receptions.
I can't believe it. So I like the Carr and Gordon much better than the Drew Lock and the Josh Jacobs. By the way, what is Carr's ownership and what is Gordon's ownership?
Carr's ownership is 6% and Gordon's ownership is 4.6%.
Wow, we're getting everyone well over under 6% on this. That's
everybody's under 6 except for Carr, which is just barely over.
Oh, yeah, he's just barely over.
Actually,
right?
he's 6.6 right on the nose.
And then what is Nelson Aguilar? Because I like him in this matchup.
4.1% owned.
Woo!
Yeah.
I don't understand why the community is not, the fantasy universe is not caught on to Nelson Aguilar. He's had a very nice year.
I don't know why this week he's that low owned. Maybe because, are they out of it? I assume the Raiders are out of it. I don't really
They
know.
are. They can't win. They can't get in the playoffs.
I don't know. Maybe that's the reason. It's just, I guess they just think of that Aguilar from Philadelphia who just couldn't make it. You just can't get that out of your head.
I know, and that's a shame because you and I and those who picked him up have been profiting off of Aguilar. Now, folks, he's up and down, and I get it, but this is GPP. We're looking for ceiling. I don't care about floor. Here's his last 4 games, Emil. 8, 24, 9, and 30. He's the perfect GPP play. Yeah. Absolutely perfect. In the 2 games that he scored over 24 points, he hit 100 yards receiving at the touchdown, and he had a chunk play in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm winning the GPP. That's what I need. Chunk plays in the passing game. Aguilar, we talked about it. This Denver secondary is depleted. They're giving up almost 39 points a game in the last month, 65 receptions for 784 yards to opposing wide receivers. Aguilar, folks, he's going to be on the Raiders next year.
Yep.
He's played great football. And John Gruden is going to keep this man on the Raiders. He's too good to let go. I love this GPP. And in this one, look at this. This is the cheapest one I think we've had all year. Emil, this is only $25,400. But you have $6,150 left for your remaining 4 players. You could jam Derrick Henry and Corey Davis into this lineup. Or, if you want to jam in someone, you want Mike Evans, and you want someone else in that maybe Calvin Ridley or something. You can go another high-end player here, if not 2. So, I love this GPP. What do you think, Emil?
Yeah, I really do like this one. This is going to be a fun one to play. It's a crazy week with this week 17, as we pointed out. But this is a really nice lineup. I do like it. And, Carr was hurt. I don't, and he played last week, so I think that he's probably okay. I'm not sure if he's going to try and run into the goal line, but yeah, this is a really good lineup. By the way, you also mentioned John Gruden. He's finding these guys like Waller and Aguilar.
Yeah.
And that's fun. That's the fun part of watching the development of teams. I know that people like to make fun of Gruden, and he gets frustrated at people, but he's able to find some players like this that aren't rookies or aren't coming out of the draft, that haven't succeeded. And Waller's been fantastic. As a matter of fact, everybody this year was thinking, he's going to come down because they got those rookie receivers and Ruggs, and it's over for him. We were wrong, or I wasn't. I had him in a bunch of lineups, and we're all trying to predict guys coming up and going down, but boy, everybody was wrong about that.
Now, I was talking about my best ball with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
My best ball team, it was Darren Waller and Mike Gesicki and Irv Smith.
Yeah.
And Irv Smith and Gesicki. It's weird. Those guys, sometimes I had 2 of them in my flex on the best ball. You know how you have the tight end and the flex position. Yeah. Sometimes I ended up with Gesicki and Waller, or I think it was last week, Irv Smith, or the week before, it was Waller and Irv Smith. So I got, those teams with Kirk Cousins turned out to be really, really good. They overcame some okay running backs. I had Nick Chubb and Miles Sanders, but Waller, if you can, best ball is interesting. I like it more and more. But, man, every round counts. You have to hit players in round 17. Guys like Irv Smith was good at times this year.
Cam Newton, I got this week too, because Rudolph is out.
Yeah,
so this is another game he may play well. Well,
by
the way, we've got a question here on Twitter. Let's see if we can't answer it. It's kind of complicated. Final week, and I need a win. 1 point PPR. He needs 5. How many of you have 5 of these players? You ready for your pencil?
Well, let me get a piece. I'm old. I need
this
to
is
write
going to take
down.
a minute just to make sure we understand the question. Okay, he needs 1 running back, at least 1 running back. So and receiver. So Scott, Boston Scott, running back. Rodney Smith, running back. Ty Montgomery, running back. Godwin, Myers, Sterling Shepard. Am I going too fast?
Nope, I got it.
Tyron Johnson, and A.J. Dillon. Oh my gosh.
Well,
I don't think I've ever seen such a long question.
PPR scoring, right?
PPR.
So obviously Chris Godwin is number 1.
Got it.
Sterling Shepard, number 2.
Got it.
My dog. Maura, you got to sit down. I know you love me. Sit down, Maura.
Don't worry about the dog.
I got to go. Then I'm going to go Ty Johnson.
Okay.
I'm going to go Rodney Smith because he's in that Panthers backfield and they pepper their. And I saw him at Minnesota. I'm not saying Rodney Smith's a star, but he did have moments at Minnesota, the Golden Gophers in college, and he should be the starter there. So I'm going to take Rodney Smith.
Okay.
And since it's a PPR, I'm going to go Ty Montgomery.
Okay, well you already mentioned 5 already. I think.
So
no,
it's
Ty
Smith,
Montgomery's the 5th one.
Montgomery,
Okay,
Shepard, Johnson, and Godwin.
Sounds great. All right, I'll put that in after we get off the air here real quick. Hopefully he will win. All right, John, have a great week 17, and anything else you'd like to tell our subscribers?
I just want to say thanks for watching all year. You guys have been great. Emil and I know I appreciate it. Happy New Year. It's the first year we've done this show. We've had fantastic viewership. We really appreciate it. It's a journey. I've never been on the other side of a 17-week journey like this, but it's a journey. But I couldn't have done it without all of you and retweeting and watching and being kind. So I want to thank all of you for watching. Have a happy New Year and enjoy the games tomorrow.
Yes, thank you. A great outtake, and I totally agree. It's been really a pleasure doing the show. I'm not really an anchor, but you talk all the time. I just have to sit and look at your viewgraphs and whatnot. But yeah, it's really been a lot of fun. The contrarian GPP. I'm more of a cash guy, as we've talked before, and of course the majority of the show is cash. And I've been okay. I've done. I missed my lineups last week. I just was busy and missed them. So hopefully I'll get a couple crazy ones in. But I've done all right, and hopefully like that slow progression over the years is getting a little. I do $1 bets, 5 $1 bets. So I'm pretty minimal.
Hey, my goal is just to be in the black every year and have a good time. And so far I've been able to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I'm happy.
You got to take it slow. You got to be careful not to go crazy. All right, John.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the year, and good luck tomorrow.